everyone, this is Black Helicopter Radio. My name is Ed Walker. Today is the fourth day of November 2010. For just to clear up any confusion, I originally tried to schedule Chris White to do a live interview, but the Blog Talk channel, we've been having actually a number of issues with it lately. So I don't know if I made a mistake or if there's just some glitch in the system, but it was scheduled. It was meant to be scheduled at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is the normal time that you all know, and that's the time I always do it, Tuesday and Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern. But it scheduled it for the 5th at 1 a.m., so just completely off time. So instead of either canceling it or I did try to fix it, didn't work. I just decided just to go ahead and do a pre-record, which is fine. And I do apologize for the people that wanted to call in. I know I had a number of you tell me that you did specifically want to ask Chris White questions, so I apologize about that. Chris said in the future, though, hopefully we'll be able to get a live show down so you guys can do that. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it's what it is. Blog Talk Radio. It's not perfect, but it does the job of getting the message out there. So, anyways, let me just go into the show then. So, Chris, how have you been doing? The last interview we did was received really well, and I still get people talking about that. So that's why I wanted to have you back on.
Yeah, it was really fun, and the questions really kept that rolling. So it was just I got a lot of really good responses from that. People were emailing me for a while about that, so it was really cool. I had a lot of good responses. I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and then I've been my show's been covering some of the issues that we talked about back then. I've been going into theosophy a lot, actually. I wanted to get your take on some of these UFO religions. I've been doing shows on those, and they're very, very similar to theosophy. And the whole, I mean, there's a bunch of them, but talking about these old UFO religions, and they basically are theosophy, but instead of the ascended masters being these higher evolved spiritual beings, they just kind of switched around and make them extraterrestrials. But have you looked into those groups at all, the UFO religions?
Like you mean like the Raelians and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot of the nuts and bolts about them, but I certainly know the basic stuff. They certainly pick and choose from the same pool of stuff that everybody is kind of drawing from. Somebody might take a little bit of Zechariah Sitchin here mixed in with a little bit of, this over here, and it's just everyone does a little something different, but it's basically the same thing. And all of it's really the same thing, whether they're using aliens or ascended masters. It basically comes down to this. An evolution is coming. We can be like them if we are able to go through the evolution. And so I know that it's pretty simplistic, but ultimately that's what it all comes down to: evolve or die. The 2012 stuff, everything is about that.
Hmm. And that's one of the fundamental beliefs of the Illuminati is that man, through the use of intellect, can become like God. But yeah, I did. I mean, yeah, It's amazing actually how similar their beliefs are compared to like the Theosophical Society. And then specifically, I called out this group called Ashtar Command, which believes Ashtar's the name of this extraterrestrial being who was claimed to be channeled by UFO contactee George Van Tassel. So it's interesting though because I mean, okay, so you look at the Theosophical Society and they claim to be channeling ascended masters. And then it kind of shifted though. These UFO cults kind of started around the Cold War, that era. So it's almost like they just had the same message, same idea, but instead of ascended masters, it just kind of changed with the times. And instead of that, it goes into extraterrestrials because that's more, within the nuclear age and stuff. That's what they thought maybe that would be a better way to spread the message. So
Right. It's funny about that because it's very correct what you're saying that when there is channeling going on, and it doesn't really matter if it's I've been doing a lot of research on David Icke, and he did a lot of channeling in his early days, but he described channeling as a few different ways. He would get it direct sometimes, which was hearing voices in his head, whether it was through automatic writing, which a lot of early theosophy did, but they also got it direct or through a lot of other different ways. Whatever way it comes, and you can find all kinds of different uh, places that don't claim to be a part of theosophy or whatever, but they all tend to have the same basic message. And it's really fascinating. I think I did this in part of the research that I was doing. It was just starting reading channeled material from all over the place. I found a list of people that were, hugely famous that claimed that their writings were channeled, and the consistency, regardless of what the being was telling the individual, that was clearly dependent upon the individual's paradigm. Like if the person grew up in a certain situation, that they were channeling, a relative or whatever, and maybe it was Egyptian god in the case of like certain people, or as you're saying, Pleiadians or aliens from different planets. A lot of the early stuff about the Enlightenment and all this stuff came from Pleiadians, and then there was another group. Anyway, it's all over the board, but the message is consistent, and I think that that's really where the focus of the New World Order research has to go, if we're honest with ourselves, because they say, like, here, let me give you a quote here from these beings that are talking about the New World Order. They say, in a preparatory period for the New World Order, this is the entity talking, there will be a steady and regulated disarmament. It will not be optional. No nation will be permitted to produce and organize any equipment for destructive purposes or to infringe the security of any other nation. Another quote is, the New World Order must meet the immediate need and not be an attempt to satisfy some distant idealistic vision. The New World Order must be appropriate to a world which has passed through a destructive crisis and to a humanity which is badly shattered by the experience. The New World Order must lay the foundation for a future world order which will be possible only after a time of recovery, of reconstruction and rebuilding. But they don't go into it here, but this New World Order is what these beings are very, very focused on. But yet somehow we've got it into our heads that if we really look behind the curtain of a lot of these people that we are following in the truth movement, their beliefs and their teachings are even by their own admission from these same beings that have obviously an agenda to set up the new world order. So we're like sheep to a slaughter, most of us here, and we've failed to recognize the nature and the actual agenda of the New World Order, which is a spiritual agenda, apparently. Even out of their own mouths, it's a spiritual agenda. That these beings are desiring the world order. They're playing the people that just to get them to spread the message. And here we're thinking, it's about, smaller things. And so, because of that, our defenses are down when we are trying to who we're saying is right and who we're saying is wrong, because we're not seeing the nature of the agenda. I didn't explain that quite well, but I think it's close to your point there.
Yeah, and actually were those, I think if I'm not mistaken, some of those quotes were taken from Externalization of the Hierarchy by Alice Bailey.
They
And
were, yeah.
okay, and then the term New World Order, I mean that's kind of what I try to when I really want to simplify it to people. The point I'm making is okay, so a lot of these researchers that you talk about and expose, and uh, they're associated with the anti-New World Order movement, but they're taking spiritual beliefs from people that wanted to set up a New World Order. So it's really not too complex or too hard, and it's not that we're trying to cause infighting. It's just stating the obvious. When you start, it's, I mean, how could you say you're against the New World Order Illuminati, but then be really into the ideas of Alice Bailey, who said she wanted a New World Order. And then, as far as the term New World Order goes, and then associating it with those UFO religions, there's this book titled New World Order: Prophecies from Space, channeled by the Ashtar Command, which came out right around this time of the George Bush speech, actually. But I mean, that's funny just how the New World Order, they use that term, and then Ashtar Command is just so similar to the Theosophical Society. So, I mean, that really is the term that they use. So that is a powerful term, New World Order.
Definitely. Um, just one more thing on that. They do it for different people groups, like the seed groups were intended to do. Like you might have this Ashtar Command people. They're only are able to get to a certain amount of people. There's only a certain type of people whose paradigm will shape that. But that same thing, which is that there's an evolution coming. You can be like us, in various different ways. They could be sort of ambiguous about how that happens or why it's supposed to happen. But that primary message is taught to them. And then you have on the other end people that are getting deceived about, let's say, 2012. It's totally different paradigm. They're believing totally different things. They have no concept of aliens or anything in there necessarily, but they are believing the same thing, that there's an evolution coming very soon, and that we're going to have this opportunity to become like something different, and blah blah blah. And then you've got, of course, the more overt people that are saying that, like David Icke, who, I mean, he says this enlightenment's coming, and that basically at the end of every single one of his books, recent books anyway, he says that this is going to happen, and it's going to enlighten the world. Certain people are, and namely the Christians, are not going to be able to evolve, and so they're going to be our enemies when this thing happens. But if everybody thinks positively, they're going to be all right, and they're going to evolve. And so, what I'm saying is that the evolution concept is so it permeates everything, and it's not so much that one group is worse than the other or bigger than the other. I think theosophy gets singled out a lot because it did such a thorough job. The channelings of Blavatsky and Alice Bailey were such complete works describing the agenda. That's why it ended up being kind of the base level of the new age, because there was so much information to draw from. So different areas of the new age took certain pieces of Blavatsky, like the Kundalini thing. That's a good example. We it's kind of just a part of our culture now. But of course, it was Blavatsky that brought that in there. Some people just took the Kundalini thing and ran with it, and there's just so much for them to draw off of. So it's not so much that they're the big bad thing. I'm quite certain that if you went to the Theosophical Society, the people behind that really, they're not the New World Order. The New World Order was the whoever wrote that stuff that Alice Bailey wrote down, and this is the thing that's easy to understand. Alice Bailey, if she, and people like Annie Besant, they were so prideful. And if they had wrote it, they would clearly say they did. But these are people who are so adamant that they didn't write what they were writing. They said, "This isn't mine. It's not. I don't put my name on that." Essentially, well, they did put their name on it, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The fact that they say that it's being channeled by these ascended masters, and then yeah, I mean the fact obviously why wouldn't they take credit for it? And yeah, the writings, and that's a good point. How you're saying it's not like necessarily trying to single out the Theosophical Society because like you mentioned, it's just I mean yeah, this ideology is in so many different mystery schools or occult organizations or religions throughout time, through different parts of the world. But the thing with the Theosophical Society is it's so, I mean, you read Externalization of the Hierarchy, and that's just one document that it just completely changed my view on everything. I mean, that book absolutely, I mean, it was literally when I was reading it, it sent shivers down my spine because it was almost like reading a blueprint of how to set up the New World Order. And it's still just when I first opened it up, and then I actually went straight to the section where it actually said New World Order, and they're actually using the term that we all know so well, and then also how you connected that type of ideology, but then that type of ideology is also permeating the people who claim to be fighting the New World Order, and it all fits into place so well. But as far as this overall kind of ideology. Like William Cooper in his Mystery Babylon series, he talks about how it's just all these different groups, but they all have the same, they basically say the same thing more or less, these Masonic ideas. But yeah, the Ashtar Command and then the UFO religions is another side of it. But I think basically they're just, ripping off the whole idea of the Theosophical Society, but then they just do it to make it more trendy with aliens and stuff. But as far as David Icke. Yeah, I mean, so you said in his early writings, I wasn't aware he, I mean, I know you don't want to give away too much because you're. Hello, everyone. This is Black Helicopter Radio. My name is Ed. Scheduled, is meant to be scheduled at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is the normal time that you all know, and that's the time I always do it, Tuesday and Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern. But It scheduled it for the 5th at 1 a.m. So just completely off time. So instead of I don't, either canceling it or trying to, I did try to fix it, didn't work. I just decided just to go ahead and do a pre-record, which is fine. And I do apologize for the people that wanted to call in. I know I had a number of you tell me that you did specifically want to ask Chris White questions, so I apologize about that. Chris said in the future, though, hopefully we'll be able to get a live show down so you guys can do that. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it's what it is. Blog Talk Radio. Walker. Today is the 4th day of November 2010. For just to clear up any confusion, I originally tried to schedule Chris White to do a live interview, but the Blog Talk channel, we've been having actually a number of issues with it lately. So I honestly, I don't know if I made a mistake or if there's just some glitch in the system, but it was